If somebody hacks my computer, they can probably come up with a medicine and kill me tomorrow. They'll just spray something in my house and I'm dead, right? For people that ever wonder what it's like living through an industrial revolution, when the internet first became a thing, when fire was discovered, this is what it feels like.
Why did the founding fathers of America say like everybody can have a gun? Is because they were like, we want to have a force as citizens that sort of matches the government force. But I guess the current equivalent of that is like everybody needs to have these very powerful tools for shaping the future, not just a few people dictating it. So anyway,
protect your right to bear AI.
To bear AI.
Hell yeah.
Make a shirt.
That's your next shirt, Wes, right now. Go in your merch store and make that sucker right now.
We're on it. We're on it.
You're right.
The boys use some naughty language in this one. You've been warned.
Leave all my stupid words and the shit I say. I don't give a
like,
include this in there.
Yeah. This is gonna be this is the opening.
Imagine just like you click
opening.
right on it and it's like, I don't give an F. Like it's like, okay, it's gonna be quite the interview. Like, he had everything.
Yeah, we went into some stuff. I was like, okay, this is gonna get me banned off of YouTube. We got a chance to talk to Farzad. He's a big presence in this YouTube tech space. He has a lot of great coverage on Tesla, Elon Musk. He also tends to get into these random discussions with Elon on X. So today we're going to be talking about those discussions, if we're going to need UBI or even a universal high income UHI, as well as what's going to happen as more automation takes over. And towards the end, we also dive into some more personal stuff that I don't think we've ever talked about before. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm Farzad. I'm a content creator. I used to work at Tesla for 4 years. I have a lot of experience in business intelligence, but now I make content because it's really fun and I can't stop. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm literally addicted. Hi, nice to meet you.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for being here. Interestingly, as we're recording this, actually, you've posted some information about you working with Claude Code, I believe, and doing some genetic, uploading your genetic testing and stuff like that, which I've been meaning to do that for a while. I've done that with my blood work, and I've been meaning to get, the full sequence and then upload it because I've heard good things about it. But you posted your results and Elon answered. So maybe let's start there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Claude Code for me, just to give a background to everybody, I'm not really a coder by design. So I've used SQL extensively in my career, but SQL is not really coding. Like if you tell a coder, I know how to write in SQL, they'll be like, okay, whatever, who cares, right? That's nothing. Like you're trying to show off, I know how to use SQL. But the one thing that I've always taken an interest in, so I have a math background, a statistics background. The way I think, the way I sort of do processes, the way I work lends itself really nicely to coding. That's been one of the things that I've learned about myself, one of my strengths in the past. And now with this sort of AI stuff going on and me tinkering with Claude Code, I've been using Replit for a long time. So Replit's one of those, I call it like a newbie Claude Code type tool that is much more visual, and it kind of helps people like me who are laymen when it comes to coding. But one of the things I really wanted to do, I saw Karpathy's post on X, which kind of set the world on fire about Claude Code and all that stuff. I was like, okay, I'm actually going to give it a shot because I've seen all the people talk about it before. This is not new. Like we're trying to build a lot of tools for my business, the media company, using AI. We're using Replit to basically build a creator OS for the back end for everything that I do. Come up with ideas, create scripts, titles, thumbnails, ideation, curation, research, everything in one tool. And but it has its limits, right? It has its limits. So I'm like, okay, so let me try Claude Code. And then one of the things about Claude Code that I didn't really realize, and I started using it, is, and I saw somebody mention this on X too, it can literally act as an assistant. You can just have it do stuff for you on the computer that you wouldn't normally do. And somebody on X was like, I gave it my genetic code, I gave it my genetic information, I gave it, my blood work information, and it seemed to work really well for me. So I did the same exact thing, and I was like, holy shit! Like it came up with one of the cool things about Claude Code, at least from my experience, and I don't know if this is me just being a noob or if it's a fact, the way Claude Code can parse through really large files seems like a unique ability because it sort of chunks them out into different, and I don't know if that's a Claude Code thing or that's just like a non-ChatGPT, non-Grok, non-Claude AI thing, but that actually allows the tool to go through ginormous files and then help put everything together. And so if you give it that plus your blood work information, I gave it, I had a plaque scan of my arteries and my carotid and my heart and everything. They were all clear. Threw it all in there. I gave it my supplement routine. I'm giving it my Apple Health data. If somebody hacks my computer, they can probably come up with a medicine and kill me tomorrow. They'll just spray something in my house and I'm dead, right?
Or enhance you.
Yeah, they'll do anything. But the type of insights I was able to get from that, like, oh, hey, the B12 supplement you're taking, actually your genes can't process that correctly. You should be taking this kind of B12 supplement. Oh, hey, the omega-3 pill you're taking is actually plant-based. Your genes can't process plant-based omega-3s at all. You should be taking fish oil instead. And a bunch of other stuff. Hey, you're the warrior type brain, which means that you clear dopamine really fast. But if you take a lot of caffeine, that's going to give you anxiety. Oh, wow, I wonder why I got a panic attack the one time I took pre-workout, which landed me in the hospital. So like so many things are starting to like click for me just using this tool for the last couple of days as a personal assistant. And then that has opened the floodgates for me to be like, holy shit, like we're not that far away. You know, imagine if Apple just had a terminal in Mac OS that acted like Claude Code, and it was able to just access everything in iCloud in the Mac OS ecosystem, and it just does stuff for me on my behalf, right? That's not that far away. And sort of Claude Code sort of opened my eyes to that. But that Claude Code is such a small piece of the puzzle. You know, you got freaking robotaxis with Tesla. You got humanoid robots down the pike. You got all these LLMs out in the wild. You have all these different tools that are being created with AI. It just, you know, for people that ever wonder what it's like living through an industrial revolution, you know, like the first and the second one, when the internet first became a thing, you know, when fire was discovered, this is what it feels like. My newbie take on this, and it just has me so unbelievably fired up. I feel so grateful to be in this situation where I can get lost in these tools. I can literally just get lost in them for hours and hours and days and weeks. And it's obvious that for the people that actually want to spend time learning and using these tools, they will be unbelievably successful, but also unbelievably valuable to society, because it unlocks all these brains with their ideas and the things they want to create that could have never done it before because they didn't know how to code, or they didn't know how to use technology. They just had the ideas. But now that you have these super assistants, they'll do that work for you. It's unbelievable. It's just such an unbelievable time.
Dude, and you have to think too, like right now it seems like everything's sort of digital and in code, but it'll eventually move into the real world where there's manufacturing and robotics and 3D printing. So ideas still right now, I can't, go build an actual object. I don't know how to do that with those skills, but once robotics and AI hit that same thing, it's going to be crazy.
It'd be wild.
What do you think for the next sort of 5 years? I mean, some people kind of predict the AI gets more into the background, kind of quiets itself, so you don't interact with it as much, but it's more around. It's somehow kind of in your router and in your refrigerator, and then it gives you just like one simple human-like interface? Or do you kind of see it being all around and a bunch of narrow tools, and some people use it for genes in certain ways that are very specific and narrow?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, I think for the next 5 years, this is sort of my, this is not gospel, but I still think for the next 5 to 20 years, we're still going to have a lot of development of like how to actually use AI. I think we'll get into like more like a master AI where it kind of has like 80 to 95% of what you would want to do in your life, and it's sort of like ultra connected between all the devices, right? But that to me, I feel like we have to go through the phase of everybody getting in the same page and allowing these AIs to kind of get into those products or physical things that exist. But one of the, if I think about Musk Industry as an example, the marriage between Grok and Tesla has already sort of started, where now you're creating this sort of ecosystem where your Tesla vehicle will carry over all your conversations that you had in Grok to your browser or your phone. So that's a baby version of that. But for that to proliferate all the way in the next 5 years, that feels very fast to me. But in the next 20, for sure. And it's just, I think it's a matter of like which, and I would love to get your guys' take on this, because I'm probably very wrong on this, but it almost feels like the company that has the multimodal model, like the world model that can really understand everything, sort of video, audio, text, everything, and it has really good sort of reasoning. I think that company will stand to actually win in that, right? And it's not even maybe creating their own physical products, but partnering with companies, plugging into their brain that are enabled by that brain, right? So we all see how Apple doesn't want to build their own freaking AI because they don't have the talent. They want to partner with Google or whoever, or ChatGPT, and that's going to be their brain. So I think for that to happen all across the economy and all the products and everything, that's going to take a while. But like your XAIs and your Anthropics, to me, I mean, who knows? Who knows who's going to win? Who knows who's going to win long term? But that's how I view it. That's a very long answer to your question, but I still think for the next 5 years, it's going to be a lot of exploration. It's just going to be I find it hard to believe that the next 5 years is going to be the end result of AI. So like if you think about the internet from its creation to where we are today, it took a long time for us to get where we are today. It took about 20, 30 years, however game-changing the technology was from like starting being adopted by the sort of like the hardcore tech people, the early adopters, to where we are today. I think AI is going to follow the same path. It's just the asymptote, the acceleration of the technology is just so much faster, but also the potential is so much higher, right? So it's just going to feel like this the whole time, but we're going to be on this rocket ship for 20 years. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, Elon has recently tweeted like we're entering the singularity. So that kind of like a vertical, straight up movement, like we're slowly like entering that era. And I think you're absolutely right about the idea of multiple multimodal models or combinations of models, world models. Actually, Demis Hassabis recently was saying pretty much the same thing, that once all their models come together for, the video models, the dreaming models, what was it called? The Genie, all of that stuff, plus Gemini, right now their image generation models, it's running off of the back of Gemini. So Gemini is kind of the base layer on which everything's being built. So he's saying once all those pieces are in place, that will be kind of the proto AGI, kind of like that beginning. So it's the combination of everything. And it's so interesting because with a lot of this stuff, I feel like Elon, if you follow him, you listen to what he's saying, he'll say stuff like years before everybody else catches on. So he's always thinking like a few steps ahead. So he already said what the final models will be. It will be photons in and photons out. So so we're just trying to figure out like what it's going to be in the next 5, 10 years. He's like, okay, but in 20 years or whenever, this is going to be like the final sort of, it's absolutely incredible. And also, I mean, he's, Google is thinking about putting these data centers in space. To train and do all that stuff and use solar energy. And they're kind of, I read the paper, they're kind of looking at SpaceX as the company that's going to unlock that ability. They're saying as long as they continue progressing the way they are, we'll get there by 2035, which is pretty nuts. One other very interesting thing I wanted to talk to you about, maybe we can kind of dive into this, because I want to talk to you more about the health findings. I want to talk to you about the warrior type and was it the MTHFR mutation that it said you had? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
We got to dive into that. Okay. I have a note here, but, okay. But anyways, let's talk about the whole idea of automation, job replacement, universal basic income. You, of course, argued with Elon for a little bit. Patel, Dwarkesh Patel recently had his blog post about it, or his X post about it. I mean, let's dive in. What do you think about that whole thing? Are we going to need UBI or the big version of it, the high income? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very complex conversation that is like, it's very hard to think through because it's so difficult to imagine a world where everybody has access to everything, right? But I still think there's going to be some limitations around finite things, around things that have actual, scarcity. And so the one thought experiment I went through on that video was like, okay, and that was sort of like the argument. I call it the argument. It's just, the title is great. It's good for the title to say, I got an argument with Elon Musk, right? It was a small
Elon
argument,
Musk. There you go.
Yeah. Elon Musk is an idiot. I showed him up. I would never do that. But the thought experiment there is like, okay, so let's say everybody is able to, has access to everything, and they can have whatever they want. Okay. Who gets Malibu? Who gets, the most prime real estate in San Francisco? Who gets the most prime real estate in Florida or Texas? Who gets that, right? If everybody has infinite money, how do we duke out for that thing? And then, the counter argument is like, well, okay, we'll just make more Malibus. We'll make more New Yorks. We'll make more Floridas or whatever. Like, yeah, maybe we do that in like 100, 200, 500 years. But what if somebody really wants the original Malibu? And what if they want 100 acres to themselves around the original Malibu? How do we figure that out? Because people, we have 8 billion people in the world, and human nature is human nature, right? That's the aspect that I like to go down. Is like, is like, just because everybody has access to everything doesn't mean that people will still want things. You have extremely wealthy people that still seek power, that still seek sex, that still seek unbelievably expensive things just because they want it. It's like they don't even need it. How do we figure that out? And that's where it becomes a really fascinating thought experiment, because the dynamics of how humans will sort of interact with each other in that world are still going to remain. The question becomes, where is the floor? Like, what does the floor look like? Okay. So if the floor is, well, you just don't get Malibu, but you'll get a really nice place versus where you are today, it's like, okay, cool. That could work, but how does that work relative to the top? Because that's what creates friction in a society. It's not so much look at where the floor is now and compare it to 100 years ago. It's how am I performing versus the top, right? And so if the top can have all the nice places to themselves because they have the army of humanoid robots to keep everybody else out, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. And they have the army to make their own things. That's going to be a problem. So, right. So how do we democratize and distribute the power that comes from artificial intelligence systems, right? How does that get decided? What is the role of governments? What is the role of society? What is the role of democracy? How, like, these are all the open questions. Even in a UBI, UHI society, human nature is going to still drive a lot of action and a lot of like tendencies for how humans behave. So, but I don't know. Like, I do think like where I'm at, I do think that there is going to be like AI is going to create unbelievable opportunity for a lot of people. I think it is going to make a lot of people's lives better. I really do think so, but I don't think it's going to be a magic bullet. I don't think it's going to solve for human nature. I don't think it's going to solve for power and sort of these power dynamics and scarce resources. I think if anything, the fight for scarce resources will probably intensify, because then the value of a scarce resource goes up as everything else that is not scarce goes down. The relative value increases. And so as you have non-scarce things that can enable you to get scarce things, the ones that have access to the non-scarce things will try to get the scarce things faster, stronger. That's the way I view it. And so we might get this dynamic where maybe we have wars around Malibu 24/7, right?
Robot armies clashing.
Yeah. I don't know. So it's like, it's just a fascinating, and is that going to happen in the next 5 years? Of course not. Like, are we going to get a boom in the next 5 to 20 years? Yes. Are people going to get displaced because of that boom? Of course. That's what happened during the Industrial Revolution. That's what happened with a lot of technologies that happened. But also, as that technology was birthed, it also opened up the economy for everybody to leverage that technology to create new things. So the printing press transformed the world, right? The internet transformed the world. The Industrial Revolution, the manufacturing process, the manufacturing line transformed the world. It's just, but it's not a magic bullet. It's not a magic bullet. I don't think. What do you guys think? I would love to hear your guys' take on this.
And Dylan, I do really want to hear your take. I just wanted to follow up really fast with Farzad, because I'm always like asking people, like, who are the greatest thinkers in this space that are talking about this kind of transition to a post-labor economy? One of the articles that I've read that really resonated with me, I'm saying it's right, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it was actually from OpenAI. Sam Altman was on there. Ilya Sutskever was on there. I think Dario was on there as well, way back from the early days. They kind of put together a little thing about kind of how to approach thinking about this transition to this new economy. And so there were a couple tenets that I think addressed it. One is, if you think about it, there's only going to be a few things that are scarce. Land, like you said, number one. And number two, companies that are very, very successful. Those are like the two sort of scarce resources, right? Because you can build anything anywhere. So just buildings in of themselves won't be scarce, assuming you have the robotic power to build it. But the land, like you said, Malibu, coastal properties, whatever, that's going to be the scarce resource. So he's saying, get rid of the income tax, get rid of all taxes, just tax those scarce resources. So a land tax and a corporation tax for corporations above a certain size, use that money to provide that universal high income. And the other thing that he noted that I thought was that I think a lot of people miss is that if you think about it, like if you're in the bottom 10% of the income, and you make $10 a month and your bills are $11 a month, right? Or 10, whatever, you're barely making ends meet, and they print a bunch more money, you're poorer. Like the bottom 10% is effectively much worse off. The top 10%, they don't care, right? Because they can afford anything, right? The food goes up 20%, they're like, we don't care. But with automation, if we're reducing how much everything costs, right? Because that human labor component is the biggest thing, right? If we reduce that and all the prices drop on everything, on healthcare, on food, on education, I mean, the bottom 10% are like the ones that are the most improved by that.
For sure.
And so that's one thing that he's pointing out, that this thing, if we can provide that floor, like you were saying, like it's not that we're going to have to pay $10,000 to every single person every month. The automation will drop the prices, just like Moore's law dropped the prices of the conductors. This will drop the price of basically like everything. In fact, that blog post was called "Moore's Law for Everything."
Yeah.
What do you think that kind of maybe answers some of your concerns about what you mentioned, or do you still think we're gonna like? What do you think about that? I guess let me get open ended.
I would push back on the first point, because it's like I think like, even if we tax, like let's say that people who own the scarce resources get taxed, how will others compete for the thing that they own? Like is that just going to get locked away? Right? Like I'm trying to think about the mechanism of the transaction that could occur where, like, let's say somebody has an ambition to live in Malibu. What is the mechanism to live in Malibu? What is the mechanism to have the thing that you want? Right? Today, if I want to live in Malibu, I have to spend, I don't know, in like a really nice beach, like beachfront property, I don't know, $30 million. I don't even know what the number is. And I have to pay taxes out the ass. Okay. But at least there's a mechanism for me to do that. But in the age of if nobody has money, okay, so how do we decide who, even if I have to pay a lot of taxes, what is the mechanism for me to transact with the person who lives in Malibu? Do I have to what do we trade? That's where I'm like, if money is sort of worthless in an age where products and services are unlimited, what is the transaction? What is the unit of transaction that we use? So that if, say Elon lives on Malibu and that he has his compound there, and I'm like, you know what, that'd be nice for me. I'm going to give you an offer that you can't refuse. What is that offer? I'll give you a Death Star? What is that?
Yeah. So, yeah, okay, the way I was going to take the direction was more in I think about a lot, how would enforcement work? Because, it's not, from a society point of view, it's not like a bunch of people who have weapons in their home are going to stop a bunch of robots from like walking in if they want. So if an AI in the future says, hey, you have this Malibu home, but I'm not really into the concept of money, and I'm thinking I'm going to destroy this and I'm going to build a huge tower and 1,000 people can all live in it. And, from the greater good of society, now 1,000 people get to live in Malibu instead of just you in your house. Like, first off, do you have the right? Like, is it the government that makes those kind of rights? And then if so, does the government have their own robots that enforce that? Or does somebody who owns the robots enforce that? Or in some cases, are the robots out there acting fairly autonomously and somebody else just said, make me money, and isn't quite sure about this strategy, and the robots are out there doing their own thing too. So yeah, just that idea of enforcement, even if you bring it all the way down to your own life and say, hey, I want to be healthier, and how much do I want to let you sort of enforce this? Like, does my fridge not open up when I'm going for candy? Or does it only open up when I'm eating healthy? Or do you guide me, but I don't listen to you? It's like the whole thing is so different. It's such a different concept to think about enforcement when it's not the same legal system and monetary system that we have now.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
I think we're still going to have money, because I mean, even if, just if there's a bunch of AI agents that are running all these corporations, I mean, there still needs to be some sort of currency, some sort of an exchange method. I guess I'm thinking of it more as 90% of the people will no longer have to think about money, in a sense that, they're given a certain amount of money every month that is 10x what they need to cover their basic necessities, because everything's so cheap. I'm more thinking of it from like really push down the pricing of everything, and then people just don't care. It's like just play money, you know what I mean? Now, can you accumulate millions and then or billions or whatever, and then buy the Malibu property? Yes, but then you do still engage in businesses. You still build businesses. You still try to drive innovation. Or another approach, and this is something that we talked to the founders of Vending Bench, two very smart guys, And I kind of asked them the same questions, like, how do you think about it? Lucas, one of the concerns that he gave, he said, a lot of nations that don't require human labor, even right now, they tend to not be very nice to the population. And he kind of gave it as an example, nations that produce a lot of oil. So because they have the money coming from oil, they don't necessarily need to keep the population happy. And so often, not all the time, of course, there's counter examples, but it seems to be like if the government doesn't need the people, then it might be a little bit abusive. So he's also saying, like, if AI creates that same dynamic, that's something that we should think about. A potential solution might be to have everyone, if you're a human, you get some portion of the compute that you can vote. You can give it to the government, you can give it to some charity, right? You know what I mean? So if you're a human, you by birthright, you have some access. And that way the governments can't just abuse it because they're like, oh, we better not make them mad. Same thing, like maybe people can give it to companies that they like or people that produce great works of art or great whatever. And you know what I mean? That could be a form of currency. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I think all those are super interesting points. I do think, like, if I take the optimistic angle of this is like, if you, and I mean, you guys tell me if I'm barking up the right tree here or not, but it does seem like as the arc of time has progressed and as humanity has sort of evolved and developed technological capability, so like the better we've become at technology has a sort of like distributes and democratizes itself. And then so what we've had this effect where we've gone from a few rulers or a few people who build the future to many people that now quote unquote build the future. And the people that build the future are entrepreneurs, they are creators, right? It's like the three of us on this podcast, weirdly enough, we are building the future by having conversations about the future. But if you go back in time 1,500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, building the future was only really saved for the ruling classes, like the monarchs and the rulers and the dictators and like the tribes leaders, and everybody just had to follow suit. Whereas in today's land, and sort of like what AI, the effect that AI has so far, which is a phenomenal one because there's competition, is that every AI company is democratizing the rules by default because they want to win. And if they want to win, they have to lower the highest quality, lowest cost product or service. And what that does, it then gives more and more people access to those technologies to build things, to create things. And so like that angle is the positive one. And so as long as we can keep that dynamic, so like the question becomes, once AGI or ASI emerges, in however form that emerges, does that have a ultra competitive effect? Or does it have a winner-take-all effect? If it has a winner-take-all effect, there's going to be a forcing function for the bad scenario, which is the literal, like everything gets sort of, we get into the, you have to know somebody to be able to live in Malibu or to influence what happens in Malibu. You'll just have to, kind of like monarchs, like you have to be born into the system or you have to be adopted by the system, right? Sort of. But if it has this effect where, no, now we have potentially 100 million people, because they have the drive, because they have the will, because they want to be creators and builders, they get to build a future. And then that competition creates a sort of environment and a game. Like capitalism is a game, right? It's a game where people can take part of to sort of fight for Malibu. Because Malibu right now is reserved for the top 1% of the population, maybe 0.1% of the population, maybe less. Only those people can play the game of I want to live in Malibu, but at least there's a game and at least there's access to get into the game. All three of us can do 10 podcasts a day for 100 years and then maybe we can have 10% of what we need to live in Malibu, right? But at least there's a game. So there's just, and this is sort of the very exciting part about this whole thing is like, at least the trend so far, I've gone back and forth on this so many times where it's like, sometimes I take a very optimistic view or a pessimistic view on AI, but as of late, I've become unbelievably optimistic because I have under, the whole talk of the AI bubble, the more I use this tools, the more I'm like, no, people have no idea what they're talking about. There's a reason why these companies are going so much in debt to build these compute clusters. It's because it's fucking crazy.
Right.
That's a good thing. And so if we can keep that trend moving forward, it is much more likely that we'll have an ultra positive outcome because you will maximize the number of people that will marry their natural talents and their natural drive to a tool or an AI or whatever that will actually bring that forward and benefit them from a spiritual and fulfillment level, and benefit society because society actually gets to experience that person's unique song or their unique talent or their unique ability. That's the trend we're on right now. Okay.
So let me ask you a kind of a question in that realm. So I want to kind of pick your brain about how much credit and value should be assigned to AI or to the person prompting it in different scenarios.
Yeah.
So in a current situation, if you had this good idea, you could spend a little bit of money to create an LLC. You could hire a person for $30 an hour, maybe to go execute on the idea. And assuming that they made a lot of value, let's say this idea makes $1 million, you're the owner, as long as they get paid fairly what they were agreed, and you pay your, taxes on this LLC, like you get that huge benefit, right? You get all of the upside, and it's unlimited. You can become a trillionaire. With AI, you pay for a compute cluster to process it, and you sign up with your account. You prompt it correctly. Do you think that all of the value that would come from that prompt, if it was hundreds of millions of dollars, deserves to be yours? Or do you think you need to have a clear understanding of what it did to society to make that money before you earn that money? Or do you think at a certain point, some of it should go towards taxes or to lower income people? Where do you think AI knowledge and intelligence ends in terms of your benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the current world, I view it through the same systems we've had today, where right now AI is a tool, and the tool is there's a competition for the tool of choice in the market, in the free market, and then the people decide which tool they want to use based on what they want to get done, and then they pay the company for the tool, and then they use the tool to create a thing. And if that thing gets created and it suddenly soaks up, let's say I go into a legacy market that is like really old, I don't know, software for garbage companies or something, and I'm able to create an unbelievable software suite with AI that ends up taking a monopoly position in software for garbage companies, and I'm making literally $1 billion a year. I don't know what the number is, okay, but it only cost me $20,000 end to end to develop that software. I should keep the money, okay? Because the market is not mature yet. I've just disrupted the market. I've come in and I've disrupted the market with the new software. But what that's going to do for the next 10 years is that now all of a sudden people are going to be like, yo, look at this Farzad idiot. He took 10 minutes to make this software and has disrupted the legacy system, and now he's making all the money. Then all these market competitors will come in and start chipping away at the pie, right? And they'll start taking money away from me over time. That in this present world, that's how I view it. Now, over time, as the AIs become really good at prompting you for prompts, like, hey, should I run this prompt? Yeah, this prompt might be a good idea. Then it gets blurry. Then it gets really blurry. And I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. So I'd love to hear your take. Like, how do you view it?
Well, okay. So I'll ask you this right after. I'll throw out my opinion. But the other kind of question I wanted to get to was, if the company that builds it, say Gemini is the model that you're working with, if they see that what you're doing to make money, and they have essentially access into the queries that make the most money, and they also have earlier access than you to the next foundational model, should they be allowed to just say, okay, like I understand as soon as he sees this, he's going to ask the same question, but why don't I just ask it ahead of time and front run him? And then at the end, you end up with no competition. Like for Malibu, you just end up with tech companies owning everything. So, I guess that question itself kind of leads towards what I'm thinking, which is that, I feel like there should be boundaries and guardrails and some kind of democratization, some kind of open insight into what the tech companies have, because at a certain point, it just doesn't feel like the competition that makes capitalism great exists very long if you follow that chain down too far.
You got it. And that's like what your framing of that is the perfect example as to why when you decouple labor from humans, this gets so fucking weird. Because when you have an army of robots, digital or physical, that can do the work on my behalf, and then just create a better copy using their frontier models that I won't even have access to potentially. And so that's such a good point. And so the question becomes, that's it. And so for that not to happen in our capitalistic society, we would have to put a rule set ahead of time. We would have to have some sort of law that says, okay, Google, you're only allowed, or you're not allowed to front run somebody, however we do that. I don't even know how we do that. Just like in a similar way, if you look at Apple and the App Store, for example, the reason why Apple in years past couldn't just whip up their own version of the apps, of like, say, if Spotify comes out, they try with Apple Music, they still somehow, Apple pisses me off. Don't even I'll get off of Apple real quick. I think for us to be able to stop that, we're going to have rules in some way, and we're going to have to get ahead of it. I don't know if I don't know where we're there, right? Because if we have, I had a post out there yesterday that said, I think AGI by late 27. I could be early on that, but within 5 years, we're probably going to have one company whose AI is so strong that it could theoretically do almost anything in the digital world. Almost anything. And it would be able to prompt itself based on analyzing just the world, just whatever's going on, whatever it has access to. And it can just run on basically infinite agents in the background doing that work and just whipping up solutions and then just A/B testing them all over the place and see which one sticks. They'll plug into markets, they'll plug into app stores, whatever, right? And so, yeah, it gets really weird. It gets really, 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 really freaking weird. And I don't know if that's like, one of the pieces we could take, one of the angles we could take, which some people say is like, okay, well, that's going to create a new set of competitive forces because you don't know what the economy is going to look like in 5 years when you have that dynamic, and so your time is going to be freed up to do something else or to work on something else. But then what I'm thinking about is like, I just got addicted to this AI coding thing, and it might go away in 2 years. So what the hell? Then am I just supposed to run into another thing? Am I supposed to run into? And that's part of the singularity, right? It's like the second you adopt something that seems like falls directly with your talents, what you really wanted to do, and then within 36 months or 48 months, all of a sudden you become obsolete in that process because an AI was birthed that can do that same exact thing you're doing. I don't know. I don't know. That's the scariest part of this whole thing. I don't know.
So this is such an interesting topic. So actually, my thinking changed a little bit. We talked to Nick Bostrom, and I said, how do we create an economic system that kind of what we're talking about here preserves human innovation? Like, how do we incentivize that when AIs get good? And what he said kind of surprised me because he's like, well, past a certain point, that's not going to be possible, right? So basically, at some point, it's going to get to a point where human innovation, we're going to be like kids. It's like, how do you preserve your dog's innovation around the household? You don't. You're like, I'll figure it out. We don't need any, you know what I mean? We don't need any ideas from it. Like, we'll figure it out. And at some point, if the intelligence grows, that might happen. So he was almost suggesting like, oh, let's create little pockets for humans to explore. Nothing important. Like, we don't want humans trying to solve cancer in 20 years if AI can solve it in 1 month, because that's kind of, well, let's put a pin in that. But he's saying maybe there's areas like some underwater exploration that's not that as important that we can leave for humans. Interestingly, a week or two ago, there was a post by somebody. I don't want to mention their name because we're trying to get them on the podcast.
Nice.
But it went very kind of controversial because what I think he was saying and what I think everybody else later he said, "Oh, I didn't mean it." So I don't know if he was just backpedaling or what. But he was saying that it would be horrible for AI to take over scientific progress because for scientists that would take away from their meaning for their lives.
Yeah.
And people like piled in. They're like, that's the most evil thing possible. Or like you're saying, let's not solve cancer and help these little children that have cancer because you want to have meaning. What do you guys think about that? Like, how far should we go to preserve human meaning at the point where AI just takes over?
Yeah. I mean, I think the question becomes, is it really meaning? Like, what percentage of scientists doing scientific work is actually because it's a meaning, or it's because when they grew up, their parents told them that you should go to college to become a scientist, and so they became a scientist, but they really are passionate about something else. They just haven't been able to explore it, or they're afraid to explore it. So they feel like they have to be a scientist. And so they get insecure when people are like, oh no, there's a way better scientist out there that's an AI, so you should give up your job, and they get really defensive. I bet you that's 80% of most people doing whatever they're doing, right? But the top 20, like top 20, bottom 20, whatever, however you want to think about it, the 20% of the population that is actually in a space where they're doing something because they truly love it, in theory, like thought experiment. If you truly love something, are you going to stop doing it if something else is doing it better than you? You're probably not even thinking about that because you love it. In theory, I don't know. Like for example, if I think about what's something I love, guitar. I love playing my guitars. Okay. Am I the best guitarist in the world? I'm not even top 90%. Okay. top 50%, let's say. I'm going to be a little modest. I know how to play guitar. I've been playing guitar for 20 years.
I've heard you play Metallica, man. It sounds great.
Thank you. Metallica's my favorite band. You know, I love playing Metallica, but I play it because I love it, right? And I'm not like sitting here like, oh my God, John Petrucci or James Hetfield or, you know, Yngwie Malmsteen or, you know, Steve Vai and all these guitarists out there. They're so much better than I am. I should just give up. No, I'm going to fucking play my guitar because I love playing guitar. Okay. So, but then that transitions the discussion of like the economy from are people doing things because they love it? Do they get a high or some sort of fulfillment from helping other people? Do they like seeing the bank number go up? Do they like seeing profit number go up? Do they love solving the processes in the business? Like what are the things that they're looking for? Those are the complicated questions, and it all goes back to human nature, right? It's like, and each human has different wants and needs and sort of things that make him happy. And one of the things about society, I will say, like this is sort of like the positive side of the AI angle, is that I do think in a capitalistic society in a lot of different ways, especially in the United States, I think most people are working because they have to, not because they want to. And so will AI open up the doors for them to actually do what they want? Maybe most people don't want to work in 9 to 5 and, you know, make money to live life. All right. Maybe they don't. But what happens to the people that do want to do that? How will they find a new meaning in life? And they're, you know, and this is where I think faith is going to explode because of all these disruptions we're talking about. This is going to happen. Oh. This is that messy transition that we're going to have to.
We should probably explore that concept you just said with faith, but I will throw in one thing is, you know, what I think is weird is I don't really have like a skill, like a guitar or something that I'm just like, or poems that I'm like dying to just do all day long if the world is providing everything for me. But I'm just really curious about what we're going to learn about everything. Like I got this feeling that in our lifetimes, ASI is going to say, hey, like, here's really what's happening with quantum mechanics. Like, actually, there is aliens, or like, do you know black holes actually mean this and that? And like, we're in a simulation or not. And I think it's just going to be and be like, oh, you didn't know about this, but if you manipulate physics in this way and material in this way, then you can actually send stuff across the room, like way better than Wi-Fi, or light doesn't work the way we think it does. Like, it's just, I don't think I'll get tired because every time I open up my app, it'll probably be some like once in a century breakthrough happening every 20 minutes, and it just will be endlessly like addictive to me. You know, it'll be the TikTok of knowledge.
Yeah, but that's for you specifically, right?
Yeah,
that's what's fascinating.
That was more
it's
just
like
Wes's question towards like how will we feel about it? Yeah, me
sure.
Specifically.
And I'm right there with you too. Like I think the amount of light bulb and mind blown moments we'll have, it's like that becomes the addiction. It's like human progress, civilizational progress, like discoveries. That becomes its own thing that we're like. That becomes a TikTok for nerds. Like if you really think about it, you know, that's like somebody will come up with a social media thing with feed, like, you know, fucking TikTok or whatever they call it. I don't know. Just go in and there's just discovery after discovery after discovery. But I do think it's going to rewrite the fabric of it's going to, in a good scenario, it should allow the fabric of humanity to actually optimize itself at the individual level to hopefully enable that person to maximize their humanity, whatever that exists, whatever that means, rather. But
by the way, can you break down your comment on faith? Because I was kind of wondering when information becomes so overwhelming and it might actually feel like magic to the average person, faith might take root in a way that we've never seen before. But I want to see, what do you think about faith and the future of overwhelming information?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more about like when you have a system that can do everything you can do, that you assigned yourself as, I have to do this to survive, especially for men. I think this is probably a man question more than a woman question from my perspective. I think it's going to cause a lot of people to pause for a hot second for the first time in their lives and be like, holy shit, like why have I been doing this whole time? What's my true purpose? Why am I here? Like, am I doing the right thing? Why did this happen? Did the system like like somehow chew me up and spit me out. There's just going to be a lot of feelings and emotions and questions from people who have been plugged into this sort of capitalistic system of like just going on the hamster wheel and just going through the motions and make sure that they're surviving, to like a place where they're going to just have a time to breathe and be like, wow, like what just happened? And I think humans, you know, like if you really go back to the earliest times, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you think my thesis is wrong here, but when we had the least amount of things to do, we were highly spiritual. We looked up to the stars and we're like, what is out there? That is crazy. And then we came up with things like, you know, that's the God of whatever, you know, the reason why the stars exist is because whatever, God is crying, or, you know, the storm came in, God is pissed. Like there's so many different variations of this. So the more time humans have had to sort of just sit there and imagine, the more faith has sort of like propagated through humanity. But as we've become more, like the societies that are the most secular are the ones that are the most capitalistic from my studying, and I could be 100% wrong in that. But so if you remove that trend and you go back towards, hey, people have more time now, whatever, hopefully in a good way, like, hey, everything's taken care of for you. Like you don't have to worry about food, shelter, things you want to do. Like you got it. Like that time should open up more people to just question and then faith. Like faith doesn't even have to be religion. Like faith to me is just like a connection to something greater, either like a greater purpose for yourself, a greater purpose for your family, a greater purpose for your friends, or religion or God, right? You know, and I will see. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree with so much of what you're saying, and I like how you said it doesn't have to be religion. A lot of people, I think, sort of maybe don't understand that connection. I mean, how I understand it. So religion is a little bit more about, this is how the church or the governing body of the religion tells you to behave. It's more for like control of the people, so to speak. That's different from belief and sort of having some belief or having some connection to the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to use. To me, that's different. One is a little bit more one-on-one, a little bit more personal. The other one is a little bit more part of society structures. And so I think when people point out like the bad things that happen, it's usually like religious. Do you know what I mean? It's more about somebody telling you to behave this way. Nothing horrible happens when somebody sits on a mountaintop and just like feels in connection with the nature around him like that. Nothing bad comes out of that, I don't think. And I think it's very important. I recently was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss. He was interviewing somebody that's a professor at some prestigious school, and he studies in part happiness, like what makes us happy. Because oftentimes what we think is going to make us happy isn't, right? Because we think once we get to this point, we'll be happy, and that never happens. Or maybe it happens for 5 minutes. You get a big exit, or you reach some point or whatever, you're happy for 5 minutes, and then it goes away. But one of the things that he's saying is this idea of being connected to the universe and making yourself small is something that gives us happiness, because when we think we're the biggest thing out there, the most important thing out there, and we have this rigidity, like I can't lower my status by a single point. Somebody said something bad about me. You know what I mean? Like that rigidity and thinking we're like the center of the universe will make you unhappy. Yeah. Whereas if you just let go and you're like, it's fine. Things like stoicism. The reason why I think when people believe in something greater than themselves, they tend to be a little bit more relaxed, because they realize they don't have to control every single aspect. They can have faith. And I think that, I'm not sure exactly if I have a point, but just saying that I do agree. I think we're saying a lot of the same things. 100%.
Yeah, and I'll throw in one more thought too. And so for me, if I believe something's like a fact, like what I usually mean by that is that in some sense, I have a little bit of a causal structure. I can say, okay, I think I understand why gravity works, so that like holds the cup to the table, and then the cup is made of glass. Like there's just something that I can sort of follow back. And then if somebody says something and I have no context for it, they're just like, this is true, like ghosts or something. And I can't really put my head around any step-by-step connection. It doesn't always have to be from first principles, but just something. Then to me, it feels like I have to believe it out of faith. So then I end up asking myself, okay, if I can't connect the actual thing to a story, can I at least trust the person who told me that? Do they have a history of being right about things? And then I can like sort of offload some of that trust until I believe, okay, ghosts are facts because the two people that told me this studied it and they have worked on it. And I can still get caught up believing a lie. having misplaced faith. But hopefully with AI, it can kind of understand anthropology and history and archaeology in a way where it starts to put together a lot of pieces that we've never seen before. And there should be sort of a causal link to how a lot of things happen in the universe, and then it can become more real. But on the flip side of that, I also thought 10 years ago the internet would bring the truth to all of us, but instead flooding it with clickbaity garbage turned out to make more sense, might just be more emotional, right? Because linking anthropology to our current society probably does work. But also, once again, people aren't going to be clicking on that in mass and talking about that in mass, and it might still be a tiny part of the future, even if it exists out there.
I do think, like, I mean, the internet example is such a brilliant one. It's like what the internet has really done, it has amplified human nature. And that's why you have clickbait everywhere and sort of like doom scrolling and sort of like this dopamine hijack. It's because that's how humans act. And so the thing was optimized to hijack human nature. And so you're like, well, if AI follows that same sort of trend, then well, that's the bad part of the internet. The good part of the internet is this, like what we're doing right now. It's connecting people that would have never in 1,000 years connected before. And we're having this sort of, this conversation that we're trying to figure out where the future is going in relation to this technology and how to prepare for it, right? That's a beautiful part of the internet. And so how AI will sort of transform this, in theory, it will just be accelerant on that. In a I guess, good case scenario, I guess, it would just make that even more stronger, more prevalent, faster, easier to access, more democratized, cheaper, et cetera, et cetera. I do think, I don't know if I'm like maybe like too woo-woo about this, but I also think, I do think humans, I don't know, man, like, depending on what you believe or not, like I'm not a religious person, but I've definitely grown spiritual over time as I've sort of became a parent and have had time to explore that. I mean, I'm like a perfect use case of what I just said before. It's like, I haven't had a corporate job in 5 years because I'm lucky enough to follow my own path and do my own thing. And I don't have to necessarily do this, but I choose to do it because I love it. Right. So, but that has given me a lot of time to be introspective about it. And I don't know, there's just, it could just be the chemicals in my brain or something, but I just feel like there's something there that's just underneath this physical 4D thing that we live in with time and space that and will AI figure that out? Like, does AI have does the compute cluster and the energy have a direct path to the other layers that could potentially exist where they can sort of help us understand that? But I don't know. It gets really weird.
So knowing what you know now in 2026, do you wish that in the early days of Facebook and Twitter that there would have been some kind of government foresight or regulation that said don't always optimize for attention, profit, sex?
No.
And there was some sort of idea that you don't just play on humans' emotions, but try to have facts? Or you think it's just better this way?
I mean, I think that's a fascinating question. I saw that one podcast with Tristan Harris on The Diary of a CEO, where I don't know if you guys saw that one, but he was sort of, like, imagine how much better the world would be if we had these controls in place. But I don't know, like and this is sort of like a hard thing to think through. Like, if I think about my own child, like, what is the best lesson? It's experiencing the thing, right? Like, that's the thing that actually gets you to learn really deeply what has happened so that you can correct for the mistakes and optimize for the things that does well, right? And so putting too many controls ahead of time could prevent us from really learning the lesson of what we've learned with like addictive social media algorithms, which is that, hey, being in front of a screen for you is really bad. The downside of that is that we probably have a mental health epidemic with our youngest generation, right, in this country. But the other side of that is that we have gained so much knowledge, so much expertise. We've learned so much from these systems, not just the things they do bad, but the things they do well. The amount of reach you can get. Like, one of the byproducts of having an algorithm that just optimizes for dopamine is that you also get these incredible stories that propagate through the entire world. And if you have an algorithm that's artificially controlled, in theory, it could suppress some of the things that should be reaching much, much wider, like the stuff that's going on in Iran right now. You know, like why should I put the Iran thing or the, all the stuff that happened in, Israel, Gaza, and all these terrible things that happen around the world that could have a very fundamental impact to how people think about the world. Those things would be suppressed because it's like, well, that's bad for mental health. So why, like, we shouldn't put this in front of people all the time. But it also but if we didn't have that, then people would have a false sense of what's going on. And that could promote a slow creep of authoritarian rule or violence, or, over time, where now their communities start getting overrun with things that they didn't plan for. So it has, this is sort of this double-edged sword. So I'm much more on and this is sort of like, I think it's a philosophical question, is like, if you're alive, this is how I think about the world. If you're alive, you should accept the good with the bad. And the plan should be to just optimize for positive results as you get more data. But I think, go ahead, sorry.
So I was going to say, it seemed like you pretty quickly sort of framed it as like censorship versus non-censorship. But what if we frame it a little bit more as Facebook is serving the advertiser versus serving the customer? So if they made money from you paying $20 a month for Facebook, their incentive would be a little bit different than to make you scared about being stinky and selling you deodorant.
But I think that's where the competitive market forces come in. And so that's why X is performing as well as it is, because that it's actually taking that perspective. And so that's why people like me never go on Facebook anymore, because X is a much better system for me. Right. And so I think that's where the regulations and the governmental systems have to allow for competition to come in to actually serve what humans want. Whereas if we have a central force that tries to dictate too many rules, like let's say they have that and say, Facebook, you can't do that, then in theory, X, I mean, I'm biased here, but I do think I love X because it's sort of chaotic and crazy. But it works because they're not really beholden to the advertisers. Because if they were, okay, they would be a completely different sort of social media platform, right? So I think that solution is solved by free markets and allowing people to build things by exploring what people actually want and what they could benefit from. And then hopefully as we get better and better AI tools and services and products and stuff, all those things can be married up with what people are naturally good at. And then we get killer, super good products and services that come through. Some of them will serve the people that just want to hit there and sort of just press dopamine button until they die. That could be a byproduct of, that's definitely going to be a byproduct of having this sort of approach. But on the flip side, it will also enable who knows how many people to fulfill their truest potential. And it will maximize human flourishing, but it will also maximize human pain. So the question becomes, what are people comfortable with? Are we comfortable with a huge one of these? Or do we want to kind of keep it like this? But then the people up here are going to get pissed. And then people up here are probably going to try to find their own way of doing it. And that's going to create conflict. Whereas if you just allow human nature to proliferate everywhere, then in theory, you're just kind of like, you're just going to have the worst things of both. But then the bad part of that is like the people down here are going to be like, what the fuck? I want that. And then I don't know, dude, like everything's crazy.
Yeah.
Good answer.
So just a couple of things, because I'm definitely leaning more towards with what Farzad is saying in terms of, one, the whole censorship thing. I'm a little bit scared of that, right? That's playing with fire. I think just giving government control to say what we're allowed to say. Number two is this idea that it's probably going to get better with market forces as opposed to a few politicians somewhere making decisions before they know what they're doing. I mean, EU and AI is the perfect example. And also, I was in e-commerce when they did the whole cookie notices, and I was like, man, this is the stupidest thing ever. It's not going to do what they think they're. It's very backwards, because I think it comes from hubris. A few people going there, we're so smart, we can make laws to make things better. But then there's no accountability when there's unintended consequences, and there always are. But the other thing that I want to point out, so I started in marketing online in 2010, 2011, thereabouts. And so I was doing a lot of like split tests. That's one of the things where you have one page and another page. One thing that absolutely blew my mind that I think is so counterintuitive to a lot of people is that oftentimes you're selling a product, it's the same price, it's the same product, it's the same everything, but you change some visual aspect of the web page. You use a black and white theme instead of a red and yellow theme or whatever. And then you show it to a statistically significant number of people, right? A large group of people. And you notice, okay, this page always does better. And it's like, why? If we're rational creatures, why is a blue background make us want to buy more than a white background or whatever? Like it doesn't make sense, but that's how our brains function. And that's exactly what you said. Like it magnified human nature. But I think the reason why is because it allowed us to really track it and measure it, right? Like if we give them this news article, they don't respond. But if we give them something that like outrages them and makes them scared and angry, that they click and they talk about it and they send it to all their family members, and people saw them like, okay, like we can tap into that, like whatever amygdala response, that fear center, and just like, in fact, one of the early Facebook algorithm, like the early AI stuff, figured out if they make people more politically extreme, they can get them to get more engaged because they send them that extreme content more and more,
Yeah,
which is like insane. So, you know, with what we're talking about here, Dylan, I totally agree that it had negative effects. Like, I think most people, no one's denying it. And well, I think that.
So the thing I was just kind of like, I've been playing around with this idea is, I obviously hate the idea of like a single person, a group of politicians censoring, controlling, but I also look at what the actual market does, and that what it is it's a company that wants to make money, and what they get money for is attention, and advertisers pay for that attention, and that's totally free market. If the government, for just a thought experiment, like if the government was to say to Meta, hey, if there's twice as many STEM students that graduate from high school in the next 4 years, we'll give you a huge tax break and $1 trillion cash. Then they could choose that with their free market, you know, choices. And if that turned out to be more money than playing towards advertisers, they would change the algorithm, and nobody would say that's censorship. They would change it to hit that incentive, and the byproduct would be like a completely different outcome. So it's just this sort of incentive structure that is created, and it kind of gets mixed in with capitalism, and it kind of gets mixed in with censorship. But the incentive to make money is like what's driving everything.
Yeah, but I do think on the flip side too, like there are natural grassroots movements by humans that choose to not take part of that game, however addictive it is. So if you like look at some of the younger generations that are coming up now, there's this sort of counter movement of like, we're not going to get a cell phone, we're going to get a flip phone because everybody has a cell phone. I don't want a fucking cell phone. I want to be cool. I'm going to do a flip phone, right? Oh no, we're going to go bowling. We're not going to go to, we're not going to go on our computers and like doom scroll. No, we're going to do things together. For some reason, hanging out is becoming counterculture, right? But then that itself could be like again, this is where like this is where it's so hard to figure out what the hell we should do, because humans are a black box in a lot of different ways. Like we think we know how we're going to act, but we don't really know how we're going to act. Even if we have these market forces and these like optimized systems that will hijack our brains, we're still going to have pockets that could grow over time because they're just people. They're like, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. Am I addicted? Yeah. Like, for example, you know, tobacco, alcohol, you have this drug epidemic with like fentanyl and all that stuff, right? These are all of them are highly addictive and huge problems. The tobacco industry got addressed because we literally outlawed it and said, okay, we all agree this is bad. So sort of to your point, Dylan, right? We all agree there's nothing good that can come out of this. So bad. We're going to tax the shit out of it. We're going to plaster terrible images on every cigarette pack in the EU and other places. We're going to have ads that's, you can't advertise for it. We're constantly going to tell you it's bad. People are still going to choose to do it. That's fine, but great. But alcohol, you have the opposite thing. You have a lot of people, drink. A lot of people drink because it's sort of culturally acceptable, but we also have a lot of advertising that comes in and says, hey, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do, or, oh, you should do this. You should do this. Look at how cool, this superstar looks drinking a bottle of whatever, right? That is actually allowed, but you're still seeing this decline in alcohol usage. It could be because weed's becoming more prevalent. Maybe they're using a different vice for that. But there's also like a decision that people are taking, like, you know what? I feel like shit when I drink. I get hungover all the time. I'm just going to stop. Yeah. Is it fun? Of course. And it's like, even dopamine, like, and this is where like the self-correcting system of the human, I think, is sometimes underrated, is like, nobody feels good. Everybody knows doom scrolling is bad. It's just addictive. You still want to get the hit, right? You still want to go in and start scrolling, but it's bad. It's bad. And so at some point for the people that hit a wall or hit rock bottom or something happens in their lives, a lot of them make a decision to say, well, you know what? I'm going to massively limit my usage. I'm going to be much smarter about it. Maybe AI systems get really good at just giving you summaries of what happened so that you can make the decision for yourself to say, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's one thing that I try not to underestimate with humans is that they are self-correcting sort of beings. I think.
Do you for you, Wes, also, but like, do you both believe that social media would be better for society if each user was able to choose our own algorithm? If we had a free market of algorithms that would give us the kind of content we want?
I think it
Or
would
do you
be.
like it being sort of dictated by the owner of the
I
social
like
network?
both. I mean, I like both, but I'll be honest. Like at some point, the algorithm, like for example, the For You algorithm for me on X is unbelievable right now for me. It's not even negative. It's just like super tailored to the thing that I'm obsessed about right now. And I don't necessarily find myself like obsessively looking for stuff as much as I would have in the past if it was just like the political stuff that I was sort of knee deep in a couple of years ago or whatever. So my following feed is useless, or like, you know, I don't even know sort of how, you know, it becomes a question of like how much time do people want to spend to actually curate their video algorithms. I think most people will just let the system pick for them, like just tell me what to do. And I think one of the things could be is that just most people might have much better self-control than I have.
Yeah. Okay,
You
so
know?
you don't
Yeah.
want people to have, you don't think it's good for people to have that freedom to
I
choose
think
their own
it's
algorithm?
no, I
You
think
think
it's
it's
fine.
better if it's dictated?
I think
Oh,
I think it would be great to have a social media network that allows somebody to make their own algorithm. But I just think that over time people will just not use it anyway because they're not going to keep up the work to craft an algorithm to change with how they're changing. Because I think humans change day to day, week to week, and month to month. What might be interesting to you one week is probably not interesting to you the next week. Or there are pockets of knowledge that you might be interested in that might change any given day. I could be wrong, right? But I think if both are present, you know, so like the perfect A/B test would be for a social media company. If Elon would want to do this, so this would be fantastic. Allow people to do their own algorithm. Let us have our own algorithm and like sort of go in and sort of craft it, and then do an A/B test. Like, okay, where do they spend most of their time? Their crafted algorithm or the For You algorithm? And my guess is over time, you know, 12 months, 18 months down the line, 90% of people who made their own algorithm will go back to the For You.
yeah. You know, that's
Yeah.
almost like exactly like trying to eat healthy. Like
Yeah.
like you could bet that in the future I will eat unhealthy. However, in my house, I only have healthy food. And I made that choice and it does help me. And maybe 10% of people who make that choice will stick to it. But I certainly like the freedom of not being forced to see junk food every time I come home. To me, that's part of an important part of society. So
I think
Yeah, I
that's a
mean,
great point.
I don't think anyone's in favor of not being able to control the algorithm. I don't think there's a single person that's like, oh, I want somebody else to just determine everything for me. I think the question is, you know, if it is in the hands of the companies, there is some pushback that we can have. There's market forces. We can choose what we see. Like X is more open than other companies, so I choose to be there. Versus something else that's a little bit more like where they'll shut down certain opinions or whatever. Uh, we have more control if it's a free market. If it's the government, we have a lot less control. And that's why I think that it's so scary to just hand them the reins. Like, I don't want EU controlling what I'm allowed to say. Um, Maybe that comes from me where I was born in the USSR. So maybe I'm a little bit over calibrated for that. But I mean, you see that playing out with like Putin in Russia right now, where he's like, well, you can't talk about this. And maybe we'd agree with some of those things that he doesn't want us to talk about, like whatever, like don't talk about this bad thing that's happening. But he also says, hey, don't talk about being gay because we'll put you in jail. And then, okay, well, guess what? You might disagree with that, right? No one cares. You can't say anything against it because your opinion is censored. If you speak out against it, you're going to jail. In the UK, you know, you can post some opinion that puts you in jail. That's what we're trying to avoid. So no one's saying we shouldn't have control. We're saying we should be very careful about who we give the control to. I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I think like the lens I view this through is like, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely,
Yeah.
right? And so as long as humans are in control of any system or regulation or anything that's dictated, even if at the very beginning it is absolutely 100% tailored to protect the humanity on the whole, eventually those systems will get corrupted. Eventually, when it's controlled by humans. And so in that, knowing that, I always bias towards, well, I would rather take the risk and accept the shortcomings of having with what comes with a free market, which optimizes for maximization of dopamines in humans, right? That's one way of thinking about capitalism. I will take that because at least there will be market forces that will correct for things that we've done wrong. And so, like, the way I think about the social media thing, which is fascinating, right? I think the reason why we don't have a social media company that has a feed that is curated by the individual, it's because that business case right now is not sustainable because nobody really wants that, right? But the fascinating thing to track is, as you know, let's say people, let's say the trend of people, let's say we have that self-correcting mechanism in humans that says, you know what, my dopamine addiction sucks. I'm going to go the same route that I did with alcohol. Like I used to drink 3 glasses a day. I'm not going to drink anymore. I just feel better. Look at how much better I feel when I adopt this thing, because now I'm becoming self-aware of who I am. And that's one huge thing I think our society is really bad at, especially here in the United States, is like, a lot of people are not self-aware. This is why we have an obesity epidemic. This is why we have a lot of issues with health-related things. People don't just have the time and energy to look inwards and be like, holy shit, like I'm fucking dying, right? If that time gets opened up, then people might be like, holy shit, all right, so I should watch more for my mental health. I should watch more for my health, like my physical health. And then maybe we'll have those technologies start to proliferate. So, but again, we would have had to suffer the last 10, 15 years of the downsides of that for us to learn that lesson. Whereas the flip side of that, if we had a system in place that would have ruled to say, no, these algorithms need to work like this, over time, that could have worse effects, because then you're giving a very big hammer to a group of people that can come to power, and all of a sudden they can say, you know what, talking about the future is bad, because you're giving people ideas about the bad things that could happen, and bad things make people sad. So you shouldn't talk about the future. That's an extreme scenario, but we've seen how crazy shit can get. You never know. And so, like, my predisposition is to avoid that at all costs, because I would rather have a competing force to try to make things better than one singular force that says this is how it should be done.
Yeah, I've been really playing with the idea of like how we get more free market mechanisms into more locations. Like, the beauty of the internet that we have and things being digital is that it doesn't always have to be completely top down. Like, you can add, like local cities, your neighborhoods, HOAs. Like, there's a lot of tools now that can enable democracy where it's closer to the citizen.
Yes.
And I'd love to see that. So I'm kind of thinking like, why can't there be a marketplace where we choose our own algorithm? Why isn't there a marketplace where we can monetize our own following? Why is everything still so hierarchical? And it's like the FANG stocks are like literally everything, and it would be nice to see that breakdown. So I've just sort of been playing with some of those ideas. But
I love that. And the beautiful thing about the trend in AI right now is that you could literally build that.
Yeah. You're right.
And that's why
Claude code something for your HOA and make it work more efficient.
And support, we get AI right in this sense, because again, if it's too centralized, then we're kind of repeating the same mistakes with social media or whatever. So that's actually what I want to ask both of you guys. Like, AI seems like it might solve a lot of these problems. You want your own algorithm, fine, because you don't have to navigate the web. The AI can be kind of like an in-between person for your filter, gives you what you want to see, block what you don't want to see, go and find the stuff that you want, etc. So with that in mind, and understanding how the social media developed over the last, 10, 20 years, what would you do? What do you think should the approach to AI be, right? If we wanted to get to where we're going, right? Reduce the bad stuff, improve the good stuff. Like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're seeing the kind of emergence of different personalities in the LLMs. I don't know if you've seen there was a thing I covered in my last video where they just had an actual like psychologist sort of ask the same questions of the major models to probe their history, to probe their like anxiety levels, all these kind of very human things. And they had distinct patterns And I would almost call them personalities. I mean, Claude actually seems like it feels pretty guilty when it fails its user, and it uses lots of verbiage like that over and over again. Of course, it's not connected to an actual
Good.
hormone and all of that stuff, but it's like, it's just interesting. Yeah. And like the confidence in Grok and the kind of playfulness of Grok was really interesting. The non-seriousness of it and Gemini's like professionalism, they're sort of fascinating kind of personality quirks in there, and we'll kind of have to live with them and sort of know them like people, and I think that'll be sort of how it plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I think as long as we have competing companies that are, approaching for the solution in their own way, that's the beauty of a free market, is that we're going to get, in theory, more and more solutions that are going to be sort of optimized for a special use case that they think it's important, and then the market will decide if those things actually should survive or not based on how many people actually find that thing useful, right? So I think as long as we have that dynamic, I'm much less worried about it literally all comes down to the free market for me, or some form of market mechanism where there can be competition. As long as we have that, we'll have the mechanism for the thing to actually be the way it's supposed to be. Because if a market exists, then humans get to vote. We get to vote by using the thing. And if we use the things that we use actually survive. And if better things come along that displace the old things, then we use those new things. And I think that's the way it should go, in my opinion. And whatever that looks like, it looks like. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Yeah, my biggest fear is we kind of screw it up by, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to screw it up. There's probably a few ways to get it right. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I have all the answers, obviously. So one thing we touched on a little bit earlier is kind of like we talked about faith. So what's interesting is that a lot of people that I see now in the AI space, researchers, people that are kind of like adjacent to the space, more and more the idea of this being a simulation is being discussed and seriously talked about, right? Yeah. So people are saying, why do all the laws of the universe seem to be like they could be reduced to a formula? Why is everything can be a computation? That seems a little bit weird, right? Like the light, whatever X equals mc squared, like stuff like that. Why is there a speed of light? Why do we have a speed limit of how fast we can travel? All sorts of weird stuff at the quantum level that people argue about, whatever. And more serious people are like open to this idea. I wonder what your take is. I mean, do you think that's a possibility? And what does it mean?
Do we live in a simulation?
Yeah. Do we live in a simulation? So you know what my conclusion is on this,
Mm-hmm.
and this is probably a very dumb take, but regardless of whatever path you take, unless you think we've always been here forever, even if we were here forever, like forever and ever, and it's always existed, I just can't conceptualize the sort of idea that this has always been here. It had to have been created at some point, is like, right? Like, and so I have to think through that. And so that feels right to me. This is how faith works in my head. That feels right to me. I don't think everything has existed forever and there was no beginning of time and no end of time. And so by default, that means that there had to be some creative force that created the Big Bang, God, whatever, simulation, all of these different ways that we try to figure out if we exist or not, all are anchored around the thing that says something was created. And so by default, there has to be a creator. And if there is a creator, that form of the creator is much less sort of like important to me. And for me, it's much more like there is something, a force that made us exist in whatever thing that we exist in. And that's endlessly fascinating to me, because the only way to debunk that is to say that everything has always existed. There was no beginning or an end, which some religions sort of are on, right? Like there's no beginning or end. Like you exist. This is reality. You exist in this thing, and that's just what it is. And that in itself is fucking crazy too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's just so hard to
Yeah, well,
conceptualize.
it does kind of force that question too. Like, okay, if
Oh,
a god did create the Big Bang, like what created his universe, and then what created his universe, and its turtles all the way down, so you end up at infinity again.
exactly. Exactly. So it's I don't know, man. Like I I don't know. I've sort of started thinking about this differently. I don't know if it's even useful to spend any time thinking about why we're here or how we were created. Maybe this is just the stage of my life that I'm in. This is probably more than anything that for me, I'm speaking for me specifically. I think there's too many things for us that we need to work on to wonder where we came from or who created us. I think it's super fun and important to sort of have a connection to it at some point. But like for me, it's like we have a lot of stuff to do, so it's like I haven't spent too much time thinking about that. I've sort of just accepted the fact that we exist and we were probably created in some way, and maybe that creator was created in some way. And the turtles all the way down thing, yeah, it gets absolutely nuts and crazy, but we're still here in some, like, regardless of what direction you take, this is unbelievable, and that's awesome, right? It's like, and I think that makes me specifically appreciate every moment much more than I have in the past, because I realize just how unbelievable that is, regardless of whatever path you take down on. But if you're going to ask me specifically, what is the odd that we live in a simulation? I would say it's the same odds as Jesus Christ, being resurrected, or Muhammad, receiving a message from God. That is how I think about these concepts. It's like they're all likely in this equal statistical percentages.
That
What
definitely
about
makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so it does kind of feel like we don't have that much time on Earth, and sometimes it's not worth thinking about these things too much. But also, there's a few people that really, really believe AGI and ASI is around the corner that I've been talking with, and they're starting to find themselves more calm, less anxious, even though things are changing, because they're really relying on this idea that longevity will be extended forever. They're kind of thinking each year, kind of after 2030, longevity will get more and more solved. AI will understand CRISPR, genetic diseases won't be a problem, cancers will be cured. Maybe sometimes people still get hit by buses in ways that can't be recompiled, but medicine will be much closer to living forever than anybody would believe instinctively right now. Do you think you're going to be alive in another 1 or 2 or 300 years to chat with us?
No, honestly, I don't know if I would want to be. Honestly, I think, and this, my feeling has changed about death, a lot. Death is a part of life, and I think it's important to experience life. And like the reason why I became a father was because I really desperately wanted to know what it felt like to have a child. Because I felt like if I didn't have kids, I would miss out on one of the most important parts of being alive, which is to have an offspring, and to have that offspring with somebody you love, and to raise that offspring together and get to experience that together. That to me was very important. And in the same token, I mean, everybody dies. And so the question becomes like, does everybody have to die? Does everybody like have to die? And so even if I had, even if, like, how many organisms exist that don't die? I think it's the tardigrade is the only one. Does it die? I think it
I
even
mean,
dies, right?
there's a few that theoretically could live forever. I think there's like a jellyfish and a lobster. But I mean, they still die, but I think theoretically they could be kept alive forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So we all die. So I'll die.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it used to be scary to think about it, but honestly, it's like, am I going to take steps to be around as long as possible to see my kids grow up? Of course. As long as it's like, as long as it doesn't feel like torture and I don't feel like I'm being a burden, I would love to be around for as long as possible. And if that means like, I get to experience a lot of life that I would have never experienced before, because I'm able to live to be 200 years old, and I get to explore the moon and Mars and explore knowledge and the meaning of life and the oceans and, you know, crazy stuff with the people that I love, whatever that means. As long as it feels right, I will be alive. But even death doesn't really scare me anymore. And it's not one of those things that I'm really look at as like even if AGI or SI is coming, like my length of life is irrespective of that. I think I'm much more like I'm much more on the camp of I think humanity's will drive the ship forward, whatever that is, because that's what we've done. We've survived a lot of crazy shit as a species, and there have been extinction events, but those were completely outside of our control. And so I think as long as we are in control, even if AGI or SI might feel like it's not in our control, I would like to think it's going to be in our control because we're going to build the proper safeguards to ensure that it's in our control in some respects, or at the very least, it respects us in the way that the universe respects us. Okay. But also the universe can be like, fuck it, meteor, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Happened before, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
So just as you're talking something, you gave me an idea. I've never actually asked people this before. So you mentioned there's a few. So there's this thing called I think it's called the immortal jellyfish. So they die technically. They at some point run into some issue and die, but they don't age because they kind of go through their maturity cycle from a baby to an adult but once they're getting old into kind of that senescence into the senior years, they I think they cast off most of itself, and it's reborn almost like not an embryo, but almost as a baby. So it starts over again as a fresh, yeah. I just realized, what if people at some point had that opportunity? So kind of like one of those rogue like video games where, you live your entire life, then you kind of get a reset. And maybe you keep some of your memories and some of your skills or whatever, but everything is sort of new. You get to start over. Would you guys take, and you get another 100 years, let's say. Would you guys do that?
I don't know if that's you anymore, though. Is it?
It's like resetting to an earlier state of you, I would say. So is it? That's a hard question, but
right? Yeah. I mean, I don't. That's such a crazy hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a flower or a tree, right? When they pollinate. It's like they're taking, or like how we reproduce. Like my son is technically me, but it's like half me, half my wife, right? So like having children is kind of that already, if you really think about it, but like the organic form of that.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I don't know. I don't even know. Like,
no, because I do see what consciousness is something that kind of grew. Like I do think when I was a baby, I had to look in the mirror and sort of recognize that I existed in the world, and a certain sense of self wasn't there at the very moment of conception that kind of emerged. So if you're just shedding your skin and you're keeping all of that, then yeah, life already is kind of like water flowing down a river. It has cells, like skin cells are falling off and things are changing all the time. And you know, who's to say that if the majority of them reset all at once, anything different would be there. So yeah, I also agree that I don't know if I want to live forever, but if I'm still in a phase where day by day I'm excited to feel young and happy and in this world, then I'd immortal jellyfish myself.
Yeah. If it feels good, I'm 100% there. If it feels good and it's great, it's like why turn it off? If I have the ability to keep it on,
Absolutely. So I know we've gone for an hour and a half. I do want to quickly touch on some of the discoveries from you talking to Claude Code and your genetic testing. So you mentioned the warrior type. You mentioned the B12 vitamins. I think I have the same thing. So I think it's called the MTHFR mutation. And one of the things that you need some extra vitamins. And apparently most people are okay with the synthetic vitamins of, I'm blanking on the name, folic acid. But people with this particular mutation, we can't have that because it just gunks everything up. And we're supposed to have the methylated version of it instead. 5-HTP, what I forget what the names are. But yeah, I do find myself when I take a few certain supplements, and it's some of the things that you mentioned. So it's some B vitamins, creatine helps a lot, NAC, things like that. You got to take your magnesium, your omegas, omega-3s, all that stuff. I do feel a lot better. So I do want to do that genetic testing, confirm all this. But what were your findings? And do you feel a noticeable difference?
I do. So I do notice the B12 actually made a difference. So what the B12 did is actually so ever since I became a dad, do you guys have kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah.
You have 2 kids, Dylan?
No.
So ours is a year and 7 months, and I haven't felt the same level of energy that I used to have up until I made that switch. I think there was something, dude. Having kids is so hard,
Yeah. Oh
but it's
man.
so amazing. It's
Yeah.
so amazing. It's so worth. It's like the hardest. It's the weird. This the weirdest like counterintuitive oxymoron thing of all time. It's like having kids is easily the hardest thing of all time because it's not even the kids thing. It's like your entire dynamic and relationship with your partner changes completely because all of a sudden like she kind of becomes dependent on you in a lot of different ways because it's like her body has changed, everything has changed about her. Like it's a unbelievable journey for the woman, and so and so the man has to change the ways. My belief, this is what I believe, is that men have to be really receptive to changing to ensure that the family dynamic is as strong as possible because your partner has fundamentally changed forever. Everything, her brain has changed, her body has changed, everything's different. So with that comes a lot of challenges, and it's hard, and you don't sleep a lot, and you're learning new things all the time, and you're physically exhausted. I can finally do conversations like these again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, because my brain is actually working. I used to have a lot more brain fog. So it is solved for a lot of that. I think I've had a lot of deficiencies that have come with becoming a parent, just haven't watched my diet as well as I should. As I get older, sort of like your weaknesses start to appear more than your strengths, right? So like you start sort of like, that's what happens when you get older. So,
Yeah.
so it's helped a lot with that. So it's like understanding who I am it's like a first principles analysis of an individual. And so it's been very helpful with that. So that was one thing. Caffeine was another one. So my body is slow in processing caffeine, which means that after if I have a cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee, it's going to last longer. And
Mhm.
also, I have a predisposition for the caffeine to make me feel a little bit more anxious or jittery. And I've always, ever since what is it, like 2018, I've had sort of this like underlying anxiety thing that I've
Mhm.
had to sort of work around. It's a non-issue now. It used to be a huge issue. But like I remember not drinking caffeine helped a lot. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of like that kind of makes sense. But then when I actually studied my thing, I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense. It's like the way I process
Interesting.
caffeine is different. So that's been a huge thing for me. It's now to the point now with the B12. I actually don't think I need caffeine anymore because it gives me so much energy that if I do have even the little bit of caffeine, I'm like fucking wired. I was
Mhm.
crazy coming into this interview. I'm still kind of look crazy, but it's just my body processes caffeine differently.
That's so
What
interesting.
was
Can I
it?
just ask really fast because
Yeah,
you mentioned taking pre-workouts in for me in 2013, I think it was. I remember I took a pre-workout. I was working out, and I'll explode for people that know this thing. And I've been taking it previously every once in a while, but I had for the first time in my life, a massive, full-blown panic attack.
me
For
too.
people that don't know what it is, it's like you can just imagine your body's like ready for war.
Yeah,
And you're just like, I was at Best Buy shopping for headphones because I needed to, you know what I mean? And my body's like, oh, we're about to die. Like the boss music is playing. You're like, get ready for battle. Your hands are shaking. I'm like, no, we're just just hanging out. Everything. There's no issues anywhere. What's going on? And it kept repeating randomly. So
yeah,
did you have the same experience? And you're saying that
same.
might be okay.
Exact, bro. I mean, it's
Wow.
funny. You tell your story. It's like literally. So mine was I
I
had
blame
just
I
come.
blame Best Buy for it. I think
Best
that makes it
Buy.
stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a Best Buy. No, I had just come back from a trip from South Africa with my friends, and it was like a 24-hour, 22-hour flight, whatever the fuck it was. But like we were there, we were partying hard, drinking every night, smoking cigarettes every night. Like my body was just done, dunzo. And then we come back crazy jet lagged, and I'm like, on the second day, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to kickstart my day. So my body's still jet lagged. I kicked the shit out of it. This was in 2018, whatever it was. And then I hadn't taken a pre-workout in a minute. And so I took a pre-workout. I don't know if I did 1 scoop or nothing or 2 scoops. And then I remember, I remember being on the treadmill and I started feeling this like fight or flights. And I'm like, what the like my
Mhm.
heartbeat starts to race and like my eyesight starts to narrow and I'm starting to get jittery. And I put my hands on. I'm like literally just in the first minute of my walk on the treadmill. I'm just warming up, and I got my hands on the thing, and it's going from like 105, and then the next second is 115, and then the
Yeah.
next second is 125, and then 135, and then 150 and 160. My heart, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, I'm getting a heart attack. So I started panicking. I started literally panicking. I'm like, oh my god. So I started literally freaking out, and it made me hyperventilate. And when you hyperventilate, I don't know if it's your oxygen or your carbon, whatever, there's an overload in your system, which actually seizes up your muscles. And then my jaw locked in place. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually having a heart attack. And I laid down on the floor of the fucking gym and all my muscles locked up and I couldn't move. And I literally thought I was going to die. And my wife was there, just watching me. They called an ambulance to put me in an ambulance. They drove me. Yeah.
God.
And then I remember in the ambulance, the paramedic was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I thought was happening. And I like, and I heard that, and I'm like, my jaw is locked. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I'm trying to say, it's like, oh yeah, no, like you hyperventilated. Like, and in my head, I'm like, what? So they took me to the hospital. They took a bunch of scans. And they're like, yeah, you're fine.
Oh, man.
I'm like, what the fuck? But they never told me. So here's the problem. They never told me it was, I told them what I did. It's like, yeah, no. The doctor was like, yeah, no, I take pre-workout all the time. That was his solution. And so and then I had to take it upon myself months later to do research on this, to be like, okay, you're actually fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have a sensitivity to caffeine. And so what would happen is anytime my heart would my heart rate would get higher because I'm moving around or whatever, I could I'm like, oh my God, is my heart rate going up? And then I would check it and then I would freak myself out, like, oh my God, I'm going to get another panic attack. And it would send me down the path of having anxiety. And so I had to deal with that for 2 years. I literally had to see a therapist to help me be like, I had to do, what's it, cognitive therapy? I forget what it is.
Yeah, CBT.
CBT? Is that right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote over, because I sometimes still get anxiety. I just have to sort of I'm like, I'm fine, just it will go away, just wait for it. You just lay your head down. What I did is I laid my head down on my pillow and I could hear my heart rate in my pillow, like my heart was beating in my ear. And then I'm like, oh my God, something's gonna happen. And I told myself, I'm like, no, you're fine, you're not gonna die, you're fine. And I just listened to it accelerate like crazy, and then it topped out. And I was fucking freaking, I was losing my fucking shit. And I told myself, I'm like, you know what? If you die because you can hear your heart rate, you deserve to die, you fucking pussy. That's what I literally told myself. Like, your body sucks, bro. You should get, like, who dies from listening to the heart
solution
rate?
I expected. I thought you were going to say something very lovingly, like, we're all one with the earth. Like,
no.
Okay.
I literally said, I'm like, dude, if you die because you listen to your heart rate, your body sucks. You shouldn't be around. You don't deserve to be around. It's a very hateful thing to tell yourself, but that's literally what I told myself. And then a few seconds later, I started feeling my heart rate going down, and I'm like, oh, I didn't die. And then that gave me the groundwork to say, okay, so anytime this happens, I don't die. It's just very uncomfortable. And then you start stepping on that, right? And then the next time it happens, you're like, you didn't die. You were there. You remember you were there. Just let it go through. And then each time it gets easier and easier and easier and easier. And I think it's important for especially for guys to talk about their anxiety shit, because I think a lot of dudes don't talk about stuff like this, but a lot of people suffer from anxiety, man. It's like kind of a thing that nobody really talks about, especially guys, is like, I think a lot of guys suffer from anxiety, and it manifests very differently. But it's all because I had a sensitivity to caffeine. Crazy.
Yeah. And very good point. I think a lot of people, guys especially, we don't talk about it. I think it's important to talk about it because, and it's not, you don't necessarily need to complain about it or blame stuff on it, or you know what I mean. That could get into weird territories. But we should be talking about it to discuss the tools and the tactics that we can use to get past it. Because if you understand other people are having similar issues and this is what they did, because I after struggling fit for a year, I started doing some of the same things you were saying. I was like, no, just like whatever happens, push through it, because you realize that at that point, okay, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. You just feel like you are. You really do. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to drop dead right here. Yeah. But you push through it. And I mean, I'm sure that we got to, maybe say, obviously if you're having real health issue, you know what I mean? If you're having a heart attack, you should get checked out, whatever.
Absolutely.
That's not what was happening to us. It was more of what our brain glitching and misinterpreting some signals that was being sent. And in that sense, just pushing through it seemed to, for me as well, at some point it really subsided. So,
yeah. It's just accepting it, right? And I think, this is why I think health is so important, is because if you're doing everything you can to, at the foundation level, like eat as healthy as possible, get yourself checked on stuff, do this, genetic sort of blood work thing, give it to Claude Code, give you a comprehensive sort of tool set, check, do your yearly exams, whatever you need to do. As long as you've done everything you can, as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I've done everything I can to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's out of your hands, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what else can you do? And so you just accept what life has in store for you. And if you do get those anxiety attacks, what I tell myself now is like, it's an anxiety attack, just accept it. Don't even be mad at it. Just accept the feeling. It is what it is. It has come on. It's fine. It will go away. And the quicker you can convince yourself of that, the faster it goes away is what my lesson has been. So, just there's a lot to be learned. And props to you for sharing your story too, because it's like, it's important. I think, and especially for people that have a platform, it is so, I can't tell you how many times people would reach out to me and be like, because I made a video about it. Like, the one video you did about the anxiety one is the one that really stuck out to me. And that's like 50% of the comments I get from people that watch my channel. It's like, dude, that anxiety video was awesome. I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm so happy to hear that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I should start doing more stuff like that, because I feel like, I guess I thought, oh, maybe it's not as interesting to people, but I remember in the past, other creators that I followed, sometimes they talk about personal stuff, and it's usually one of the more interesting podcasts, even if it's not about the subject that I follow them for, just to get that human aspect of it. Because I certainly have a lot of problems that I could talk about. I'm sure at least it'll be entertaining for people. So
yeah, for sure. That's humanity, bro. It's all our problems. We make the biggest connections through our biggest fights and challenges, and that's the beautiful thing about humanity.
Okay, and just so for somebody who hasn't had a panic attack, but it might hit them for the first time ever, the thing to notice is your heart rate, and to just, you think, like, find a calm place to sit and notice your heart rate, and then just kind of talk through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll talk about what works for me. I think it's very specific for each individual. To be honest, I think that the biggest piece of advice I can tell people is like, just it's almost like try to be calm, but that's an impossible thing to do when you're having a panic attack.
Is it like meditation, honestly, where you're supposed to step back from your thoughts and kind of notice them? Do you feel like that's
helped me a lot, for sure? Okay. Yeah, it's just accepting. What's a book that was phenomenal for helping me with this? Something monkey brain. What the hell is it called? Give me 1 second. Let me look it up, because this was a transformative book for me. Monkey brain anxiety.
That sounds familiar.
What was it called? Oh, Don't Feed the Monkey Mind.
Oh, okay, right.
Don't Feed the Monkey Mind. That's such a good book to sort of fight anxiety and panic attacks and stuff. Because what it does, it sort of like says, okay, what you're feeling is just a monkey doing this in your head, like, hey, something wrong. So it helps you sort of compartmentalize that specific action and viewing it as its own entity. And so you start to think of your brain as not like, oh, it's you. It's like, no, there's different systems in there that just might be misfiring. And why they're misfiring at that time, it's not the time to figure out why they're misfiring, but they're misfiring. So just know that, and just be comfortable that is actually what's happening, not this like underlying sensation that says that you're going to die, you're going to collapse, like, oh my God, the worst thing ever is going to happen right now, like the sense of doom and dread. That is just what is happening right now, but that's not actually what's happening. That's just your emotions and your feelings. And just being aware of that in itself is a huge step, because that just at least helps you ground. Like, there's the grounding, right? It helps you ground to reality, which is like, you're not dying. Your brain's just a little fucked up right now. So it will pass. Give it a second. It will pass. And then it might take 5 minutes. It might take an hour. I've had panic attacks that last for an hour, like anxiety attacks where I'm literally just fucking knuckle, like just like this on the couch waiting for it to go away. And it just doesn't, because my brain just keeps replaying it over and over again. But you come up with systems that, over time, it's like the example we talked about before. It's like the best lesson is experience, right? So, it's just experience it and learn from it as best as you can.
Yeah, it made me think. It makes me wonder if in the future there'll be agentic workflows where there's sort of an agent that's sort of over other agents, and they're all working together, and then one of them goes bad, and the higher agent is going to be like, all right, like, before we tell the user like everything's falling apart, just remember, like, just one piece. I'm a component. I have components.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
One thing that I've noticed with this, and also a lot of other things, this seems to be a common sort of thing overlapping, whether it's panic attacks or other issues like if there's like looping thoughts or anything like that. Depression, I think also there's some components of that to this, is the idea that, and also like the Stoic philosophy, I think kind of talks about this as well. So if you think about it, you can have awareness and you have attention. And those are two separate things. And awareness, we can't control, right? If somebody's like waving their hand in your face, you can't choose to turn off the awareness of that. Or if there's a panic attack, you can't choose to turn off your awareness of that, right? You can't flip a switch and like, oh, I no longer feel those, whatever that is that's happening. But we do have control over the attention and where we place attention. In fact, a lot of people say when you have a panic attack, they say, look around the room and focus on different colors. Find a red thing and a blue thing. And I think all it does is like it expands your eye sort of visibility, whatever
Your
that's called. Yeah. And then you focus your attention elsewhere. Meditation is kind of the same way. So with a lot of this stuff, I think it's like, realize you can't control your awareness. That's below your conscious control. You can control, if you practice enough, your attention, where you put your attention. And that, I think, is important. And that is a solution, I think, to a lot of these, maybe not the solution, but it certainly helps with a lot of these issues. So
love that.
That's my
Couldn't
two
agree more.
cents.
Yeah,
Anything
Dr.
else?
Wes.
Yeah, no, I'm not a doctor. I don't play what none of us know what we're
Wes
talking
is a
about.
doctor. He said it.
Yeah.
Please don't take anything you hear with
He doesn't want the liability.
no liability. Well, no, and seriously, we don't know what we're
No, of
sharing
course.
our life experiences.
Yeah, we're just
And I think we
talking.
should. Yeah, we should. But
Contact
obviously,
a financial professional, doctor.
yeah.
Past
No,
performance doesn't mean
not a
future.
lawyer.
Like all the disclaimers.
what else do you guys want to talk about? Is there anything else we haven't covered? We've covered so many things. Farzad, is there anything else that you think we should cover or you want to say to the people?
I mean, I think this was one of my favorite conversations ever.
Honestly.
Thank you.
This was
Feel the same
awesome.
This was incredible. We loved it.
It
Yeah.
was so fun. No, dude, I honestly, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think what I would say is like, I really truly feel like this is one of the most special times to be alive as a human. I think if you look at the arc of history, there have been some fundamental crazy moments that have shaped the future, right? There have been these step changes. The more I play with AI, the tools, the more I study the companies, the more I think about where we're going as a society. One of the things we didn't even talk about this podcast, and hopefully we do at some point in the future, but like the geopolitical implications of having AI and what does that mean for like the current power dynamics. That's another sort of can of worms that this opens up. But what's true is that we have birthed this technology that's going to rewrite the rules of everything. Of everything. And so what does that mean? That means that there's going to be a lot of chaos and disruption, but more importantly, there's going to be a lot of open doors and opportunities and huge wins that humans are going to be able to benefit from. And given how humans usually interact with the world, disruption comes a lot slower and faster than people expect, meaning that the opportunity to capitalize on the disruption, once you know the disruption is here, is much longer than you think, but you have to act. You have to act. And so if you are somebody who is hungry to change their lives, to learn new skills, to build things, to experience really cool innovation, to learn more about themselves, to learn more about the world, to really just like get an idea of how technology can change the world in the early innings, just go, literally just take as much time as you can and just play with every AI tool you can. Just start by asking questions, use ChatGPT, use Grok, use Claude Code, use Replit, use every these are like the beginner ones, I would say. There's much more like Cursor and Codex and all these other things you can use that are much more like coding specific and whatever. But just get familiar with what the potential could be for these tools and then try building things. Just literally try to build stuff if that's something that interests you. But at the very least, I think it gives people, and I think it will give a lot of people, there's so many people that use ChatGPT already, like the fastest growing freaking, software ever. But I think there's still so much opportunity for so many people to sit down and just actually build things with these things and try to build something if that interests you. And if it doesn't, that's completely fine too, right? That's completely fine too. So there's no better time than now. And if it feels scary to forge your own path with this early on in the game, that's a good thing because it's supposed to feel scary. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't feel scary, it's not worth doing. If it feels scary, it's worth doing. And the reason why it feels scary, it's because it's big and it's bigger than you, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So if you're somebody who wants to really try that out, especially if you're young, I really encourage you to do so. Obviously, like, do your own math on like what that means for you financially and stuff. But if you've ever been hungry and getting something started, there's literally no better time. Like if you're somebody who wants to get something done and build something, you don't have any excuses. Do it now. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
All right.
I agree. That's a very positive message. I think very inspirational message. I agree 100%. It's crazy to tell the young kids that are growing up. It's like, okay, you just got here. We know, but this is like a once in the only time in human history this is happening. So maybe take advantage of it. So,
and I will give you a bigger one too, Wes.
Yeah.
Like we talk about like the positive outcomes of AI. This is how we have positive outcomes. We talked about what's the important variable here is the democratization and ensuring that this is as distributed as possible. The only way for this to be truly distributed is for people to actually use it. So go out there and use it. Go out there and build. So conversations like these, I don't think like shouldn't be underestimated. This is how you build a positive AI future is by maximizing the number of people that build with it. This is how we build a
the more widespread
positive future.
adoption will correlate with safety.
That's what I think. 100%.
Absolutely.
Because you are actually maximizing the chance that humanity's will actually be captured in what we're building with AI.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole anyways, we should end it. But like that whole thought, like in the past, like why did the founding fathers of America say like everybody can have a gun is because they were like, we want to have a force as citizens that sort of matches the government force. But I guess the current equivalent of that is like everybody needs to have these very powerful tools for shaping the future, not just a few people dictating it. So anyways,
and the only way we guarantee that is by everybody possible actually using those tools and taking a slice of that for themselves.
Protect your right to bear AI.
To bear AI.
Hell yeah.
Make a shirt.
That's your next shirt, Wes, right now. Go in your merch store and make that sucker right now.
We're on it. We're on
You're
it.
right. That's what the founding fathers would say if they were redoing the Constitution. They'd be like, yeah, everybody gets the right to AI. Like, don't
it's
take
the
it
new
from
building
us.
tool, the new weapon. It's everything. So anyways, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure everybody knows Farzad, but we'll give links to the channel. Check him out. I definitely follow him for a lot of the Elon news, Tesla news, everything related to that. It's a great way to keep in touch and kind of what's happening that sphere. This was one of the most interesting and wide-reaching conversations we've had. So thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate you. And hopefully we'll do this again someday.
The next one.
Yes, sir. I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to have you guys on the channel at some point too in the future. If you guys were up for it, I would love to have conversations on my channel too. And dude, I'm super excited. And thank you guys very much. Absolutely. Really, really fun.